Welcome to the first episode of the Pokesthetic review, a review show where we go through and systematically review every Pokemon and all their forms. These will be given a score from 1 to 8, and any reason can be given by the participants for their score. That includes design, lore, competitive battling, or just weird personal taste. All ratings are, of course, the speaker's own opinion. This includes statements that are not explicitly noted as opinion to avoid constantly having to add, in my opinion, to every sentence we make. This is a review and editorial thing. We're not going to pretend that we're speaking objectively, except sometimes when we bring up maybe historical references to the Pokemon or like behind the scenes facts. But most of the time you should assume we are talking in a personal, subjective capacity. While competitive Pokemon can definitely be referenced, it probably shouldn't be the focus of the series. There's nothing looking at competitive Pokemon battling around. And finally, and this goes for people in chat and in YouTube comments as well, don't be an asshole. Just any kind of racism, sexism, transphobia, etc., we will ban. So, yeah. Meanwhile, on with the show. Today I have with me First Stage Mid-Boss, also known as my friend Ben. Or perhaps my friend Ben, also known as First Stage Mid-Boss.
I mean, either is true, right? That's the magic of the internet and fake names.
Yeah.
Good to be here for us to finally start off in the most obvious place to start with, Pokemon number 0, right? Right?
Actually, I was thinking of starting at Pokemon number 111. Or 112. Okay. 112. Yeah. Got my numbering wrong.
I can't believe you haven't memorized every single Pokemon's number.
I just went through and put all the numbers in for this PowerPoint. I should remember what I typed in 20 minutes ago. Yeah, so we're starting with the first Pokemon, and you may have seen around the internet a particular meme, which is kind of a mastermind multiple choice style question, which is, what is the first Pokemon? And your options are Bulbasaur, Rhydon, Mew, or Arceus. All of these have cause to be called the first Pokemon. We will not be covering Bulbasaur today because that will be brought into the Kanto starters, which should be next time. But we will be covering Rhydon, Arceus, and Mew and their respective families. And we'll explain why they can be considered the first Pokemon. So, let's start in the most logical place, which is Rhydon.
Way.
So, the reason that this has claimed to be the first Pokemon is, well, it was the first Pokemon ever designed according to Ken Sugimori, the lead artist. So, this makes sense to put it this way. And I've got to say, Rhydon is one of the Pokemon that I think of when I think of Gen 1 aesthetic. It is dinosaur themed and it has weird, spikes and knobbles all over it.
Yeah, Rhydon is a perfect example of something that you don't see as much in Pokemon nowadays, which is, what if it was a kaiju, but it was kind of small?
Baby kaiju.
Like, Rhydon is basically designed to be a guy in a suit.
Oh god, it really is. Oh god, I can see. I don't even really watch shows like Ultraman and stuff, but I can see it. I can definitely see it. The only disadvantage to it is that I don't know. To me, it does it's a solid Pokemon. I really like the design, and I like how it kind of combines. You can see how it's inspired both by a rhino and a dinosaur,
Mhm.
but it doesn't really knock anything out of the park for me. Like, there's nothing super special about it for me, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, Rhydon's definitely like that's the other thing that makes Rhydon very distinctly a first generation Pokemon is that it hasn't got a lot going on because they didn't have many pixels to have things going on with. It's a rhino monster. It's got a drill for a horn.
Yeah,
It's
it's
kind
there.
of cool. It's there.
Um,
It's all knobbly.
I was actually going to bring up the issue later on because it kind of plays into the design a bit of some of the other Pokemon we're going to be talking about. Um, but yeah, I think I am going to be, as we go through, I am going to be keeping an eye out on how the design aesthetics of the Pokemon change based on what they had to play with technology wise. And I feel like this is something that we'll do for later episodes. We'll include the sprites of at least their debut generation.
Hmm. And actually, you mentioning the sprites does bring up one thing about Rhydon's design I wanted to mention, which is that the Rhyhorn line, including Rhydon, all have gender differences
Oh,
because they're one of those Pokemon they decided to give a gender difference to. Female Rhydon's horn is slightly smaller, but unlike a lot of the Pokemon where they took the female version and went, let's make this bit a little smaller, it's not small enough to look ineffective.
right.
Like, it's a slight difference. It's fine. The Tokusatsu nerd in me looks at those and goes, oh, in the original series, they had two slightly different Rhydon suits. And then the lore had to explain why one of them had a horn that was smaller than the other.
Someone like accidentally knocked the top off one of the horns and then they had to resharpen it.
Yeah, they went, oh, just to repaint the Nidoking horn or something, we'll be fine. Is that is the other thing about Rhydon. Is Rhydon's for drill Pokemon?
And so
And
is.
so are Nidoking and Nidoqueen. And they have a pretty similar vibe.
Yeah,
Like I'll get into this maybe a little more with Rhyhorn, but like Rhydon feels like a later game version of the same idea.
yeah. Which is funny
Um,
because it was designed earlier.
yeah,
Although I think actually, I think Nidoking and at least Nidoking, I'm pretty sure was a pretty early design. If we go by the God, what's it called? The index list?
index numbers. Yeah,
Index
let's have a
numbers.
look at index numbers.
So in case you don't know, the index numbers are essentially how the game kind of internally stores the Pokemon list. So there's index numbers for locations, items, abilities, whatever. Um,
And Nidoking is index number 7, which puts it pretty close. The first 7 also includes Kangaskhan, so like you can see there was definitely like a vibe of what's a monster? Oh, this is what a monster is that they were working off as they were like coming along.
oh yeah, index numbers are only a thing distinct from Pokedex numbers in Gen 1. But at the same time, it being in Gen 1, it's actually quite useful for kind of make analysis about like when they might have been genned. Although it's
And
entirely possible that it's not actually in that order. But we do know Rhydon and Kangaskhan were indeed some of the earliest.
yeah, there's a lot that's come out about the development and progress of the first generation of Pokemon games and like other ones as well, but especially Gen 1 and 2 in recent years, thanks to all the leaks from the Nintendo hacks. But I don't think we really need to get into that because what Rhydon could have been isn't as important as what Rhydon is. And what Rhydon is here to give you a hug and then drill all your foes. Look at it.
Yeah. So I think we got about much to say about Rhydon. I'm sorry about the cursor. I forget that it pops up when I put my mouse over it. I'm trying to keep my mouse under control. Um, I think this also kind of is the first demonstration of the fact that we have very different scoring standards.
Go on, then what have you scored right on it?
So, remember, all scores are out of 8 because eight gym leaders, 8 generations, important number for Pokemon. That will, by the time we finish this podcast, if we get that far, there probably won't be 8 generations anymore. But for now, 8 generations, 8 gym leaders makes sense. So, I gave it a 5.5, which I think is a solid, good score. Like, it's not super special, but it's a decent score. You gave it an 8 out of 8, which...
Rhydon rules. Rhydon is... Rhydon hits a lot of points aesthetically for me, as I feel like I've established pretty well. It's evoking media I like a lot. It's also just like... It feels very iconic to me. The drill horn is cool. It does the... Here's a Pokemon that's clearly evolved from another Pokemon very well. And it can surf.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, I have a trained Rhydon for competitive play. I raised it to solve a specific problem that it wasn't very good at solving, and then the problem rotated out of the meta. But
which problem was that, out of curiosity?
That problem was Dracozolt. I needed something with Lightning Rod.
Oh, okay.
And Rhydon's got bulk.
To be fair, and now the problem is Regieleki.
Yeah, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay, I'm just going to say I have no problem with Regieleki because I run Stunfisk. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to stop. Let's stop talking about that. So, I gave it 5.5 because it does solid things. It's more, I don't disagree with anything you said. It's just that none of it is enough to push it over into the higher scores for me, basically. Because 5.5, if we talk about it in terms of British uni grades, that's like, what, a 2-1? Which I think...
that's pretty good.
I think that's a solid score for Rhydon to have.
As someone who got a 2-1, I'm glad that Rhydon got that score.
Right then. Now we have the pre-evolution, which I've accidentally put up the scores for already. Oh well.
Oh no.
So, Rhyhorn is actually my favourite one of the group. From the start. I really like the kind of rocky plate design it has, and I kind of wish Rhydon had kept it. Like, I like the kind of back ridge it has, which I think Rhydon could definitely keep.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of got it, sort of. I imagine if a Rhydon that was invented today would probably have that going on more.
Yeah.
But fidelity probably meant, yeah. Weird thing about Rhyhorn and Rhydon, they're ground rock, and they really feel rock ground to me. I know it's not a meaningful distinction, really, but like that's a Pokemon that is a rock type, and also happens to have a second type because it was Gen 1, and they didn't really know what rock and ground were yet.
Yeah. I'd say Rhyhorn makes me think rock first, but Rhydon makes me think ground first. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another thing I like is that it's a unevolved Pokemon that actually looks big, tough, and mean, which is surprisingly rare.
Yeah, like Rhyhorn feels very fitting for like when you find it. Like it fits in pretty well with all the other Safari Zone Pokemon in the original game, like Scyther and Pinsir and Tauros and stuff. It's big and it's chunky, but it does feel like an unevolved Pokemon in that like there's places for it to go. You know?
Yeah. I think particularly with the legs, I think it's the fact that it's got these quite short, stubby legs that give it that feeling. Although, talking about where you find it, because you find it in the Safari Zone, and for me as a kid, Rhyhorn seemed really hard to get hold of. It doesn't have like super low. It doesn't have like super low encounter rates in the Safari Zone. But when you have a limited amount of screen time on your Game Boy, even that feels really hard to get. Particularly when you're also trying to find the other rare Safari Zone Pokemon who aren't in the same patches of grass as it. But you don't necessarily know which patches of grass it's in.
Yeah, it was definitely the Safari Zone is a very high tension situation when you don't know how it works.
Yeah.
And you're a kid and you've only got so much time and you're trying to throw rocks at things and it's not working.
Yeah. The Safari Zone was badly explained, and the limited number of steps. The limited number of steps and the limited amount of time I had to play it. Like, that's just... I guess you could also say limited battery time. You know, the good old AA batteries that you had to kind of... that burned through pocket money by themselves. But the flip side of this is in the Pokemon card game, it was a common card in the Jungle expansion. So I had like 6 Rhyhorns. I don't know if I actually had a Rhydon though.
I know that feeling.
So it kind of had this. It kind of had this dichotomy between like being easy to find and difficult to find at the same time. For me as a kid. Let's see.
So, a couple of things about Rhyhorn that I thought were interesting to take notes of.
Yep.
According to its dex entries, it's one of those Pokemon with what I like to think of as a Pringles brain, which is to say, once you start, you don't stop. In this case, once it charges, it won't stop running until it falls asleep. Which, between that and the fact that with its short legs, it can only charge and run in one direction, makes it a very poor choice, I would think, for a racing Pokemon.
Yeah.
And yet, Rhyhorn racing is established to be a thing in X and Y, presumably drawing on the proud French tradition of rhinoceros racing, which I definitely didn't just make up. The other thing is that, according to its original Pokedex entry in Pokemon Red, its massive bones are 1,000 times harder than human bones. So if you want a Pokemon with very large, incredibly tough bones, there's your one.
It says harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess hard doesn't mean tough necessarily.
I'm just wondering, because like, so the way you measure hardness is, like, where you measure hardness is the Mohs scale, which doesn't really have a, it doesn't really have a kind of, I guess, I don't know. No, I'm just thinking about, like, ways you can measure bone hardness and, like, where that would put it on a scale from, like, diamond. But we should probably not try and use, like, actual scientific logic on Pokemon.
Yeah. It's Pokemon. It works. Also, Pokemon is a franchise for children, and thus I think we've talked enough about bone hardness.
Okay, we're being told in chat by Felfrey, Vicky's hardness test and the Brunel hardness test, not Mohs, that's bad. Okay, I'll keep that in mind, thank you. So yeah, I really like I really like the kind of jigsaw puzzly nature of Rhyhorn, and I will say it might be because I do a lot of collage art, and if you're on Twitch, you can see examples of it below. There's a link to my store, shameless plug. Um, but it does look like someone collaged it out of rock.
Mm-hmm.
Vickers and Bonnell tests are actual linear scales of meaning in material science. Okay, not a material scientist, although I probably should know that already. Thank you for telling me. Um, so I gave it a slightly higher score of 6.5. You gave it a slightly lower score of 7 out of 8.
Yeah, like it's not. It doesn't have that same like, oh wow, like Rhyhorn's definitely a Pokemon I would want to evolve. You know, like I like it a lot. As far out of all the Pokemon we're discussing today, it's the one I would most want to have.
Yeah,
But it doesn't have quite the same je ne sais quoi as Rhydon.
that makes sense. Okay, now we get to the next one. Now we get to discover. Yes, Rhyperia. I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I really don't like Rhyperia. I find it just way too busy. It's got way too aesthetically. It's got way too many aesthetic things going on in it at once. I've in my notes I have it listed as a background One Piece mook without too much effort put into it, which I think is the opposite. It's a background One Piece mook with too much effort put into it. So you got the brown plates around the head and neck. That's supposed to be like either a helmet or a shawl. It's got, you've still got a rhino thing, but then we're going for ankylosaurs with the tail. You got these really short and like its legs are about the same length as Rhydon's, but proportion to the rest of its body, it looked closer to Rhyhorn's. Yeah, it's supposed to look like either a high-vis... Sorry. The plates around it are supposed to look like either a high-vis jacket or like an anti-stab or a bulletproof vest.
To me, it definitely reads as like it's dressed up for work. It's got like a high-vis jacket on. It's got a great big belt. It's got ear defenders.
I can see the ear defenders. But then... So the thing that pushes me into looking at it... Like, I can look at it from either like... kind of Diggersby style. This is like a Japanese miner design thing going on. But the thing that pushes me into looking at it kind of like more military type stuff is the arm cannons, which are actually the only bit of it I really like. The fact that it has these like cannon arms that look a lot like Big O's arms with the long spikes from the elbows, and the fact that they can fire Geodudes out of them.
Yeah, like it can fire. It tries to fire regular rocks, just ends up with like half the time Geodudes or Roggen Rollers.
Yeah, because those are difficult to find.
If it had come a little later, I imagine it probably would have had some sort of special ability or move for doing that, like Cramorant does.
Yeah.
I like Rhyperia a lot. It's my least favourite of the three. But I've definitely, over the years, come around on it a lot. I think that Rhyperia... I wouldn't like Rhyperia anywhere near as much if it wasn't a Generation 4 Pokemon. And I say that not because of my deep affection for Generation 4, but because the things about it that are, like, a bit much kind of work. It fits better when it's revisiting a Pokemon and doing something different with it.
Yeah. I will say Generation 4 is a lot. And a lot of the like evolutions in it are kind of this kind of really bulky and round thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Magmortar, Licky Licky, Tangrowth. Yeah, I'll talk about Gen 4 when we get to that, if we get to that. I will say, like, the thing that Rhyhorn really reminds me of is, those kind of cardboard sleeves you put around hot coffee mugs. Like
Yeah.
when, yeah, Rhyhorn looks like you.
Right.
Rhyperia looks like you took Rhydon and then you put it in a cardboard sleeve so you don't burn your hand on it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in general, I just think proportions are off. Too many inspirations at once for me. Bit messy. Yeah, I don't like it, but I can get why you'd like it if you get what I mean.
Yeah. I basically agree with the majority of what you say. I just find it endearing at this point rather than a problem. And definitely, I think would have been if we'd done this a year or two ago, I might have felt otherwise. I've come around on Rhyperia in 2020. 2020, the year of Rhyperia? Question mark.
I mean, I feel like that's more on my side. As, like, that's more reason to dislike Rhyperia. Um, okay, so I gave it a really harsh score, which was 2 out of 8.
Oof.
And so the way that I do the scores is it's not. So there's kind of two ways of doing scoring like this. You either give every Pokemon 8 and then take points away for things that you don't like about them, or you start them all at 0 and then give them points for what you like about them. And I'm doing the latter, and basically the only thing I really like about it are the Geodude arms. The Geodude
That's legit.
firing arms. Which I will point out gives it a full 25% of the possible marks by itself. You know.
My ethos is sort of a how long does it stick around for out of 8 on the journey? If every Pokemon is available, how long is it likely to stay in a hypothetical rotation for? And also, it got a 7 because I'm like, well, how much do I like it compared to Rhydon?
Yeah,
And
that's
this
fair.
is a bit less, but not hugely less.
Yeah, not enough that you
It is
can.
kind of weird, but it's there.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we leave the Rhyhorn family? The Rhy family?
Rayonara.
And let's move on to another Gen 4 Pokemon. Arceus, number 493. So, my view on it is kind of split.
Would you like to describe why it's the first Pokemon before we continue?
Yes, that's a good idea. Uh, and it actually plays into why my view on it is split. So, it works, it still works. It's a good crossover. Arceus is supposed to be the god of the Pokemon universe, and it is said to have created the universe with its 1,000 arms. I have no idea where those arms are.
I mean, they're metaphorical arms, right?
Yeah,
Or figurative arms? They're arms of power. Also, to be fair, nothing's ever described it as God per se. It's just mythologically created the universe, was born before the universe was made.
made
There's the whole situation in the Sinjo ruins, which I'm not going to try and explain.
It created the embodiments of time, space, and antimatter, and also invented the Pokemon that introduced knowledge, willpower, and emotions to humanity.
Yeah.
Gen 4 is one of the a lot of the way I tend to describe Gen 4 is that it goes all out, and one of the ways it goes all out is definitely the number of legendary Pokemon / mythical Pokemon, which are different, but we'll get into that, and also how important they are to the Pokemon world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not going to lie, that's one of the things I don't like about Gen 4. Arceus does not say to me a god, essentially. In fact, none of None of the Gen 4 legendary Pokemon live up to the hype of Gen 4's legendary Pokemon lore for me. And that's kind of one of the things that that's like the main thing I dislike about it, because aesthetically, I really like Arceus.
I also aesthetically really like Arceus. To me, I think it does have. It's got a grandeur to it. I think that it fits very well, like as this mythological entity. It it feels less like this is a Pokemon that's designed to make you go, oh, that's the creator of the universe, and more like someone you'd see it, and then someone tells you, oh, don't you know that's the alpha Pokemon, the first, the originator of everything, and you go, oh yeah, I can see it. Like if you picture it like standing in some sort of like glade or ominous situation, it comes out of the mist or the darkness. I think Arceus does that very well. He's got that dignity to it, and I think that being like a weird deer horse thing makes it do that better than if it was one of the more eepilish Pokemon, or if it was like some giant grand monster.
Yeah. So the Pokemon that I kind of most associate with Arceus, like if you showed me Arceus and had to say how does this fit in with the rest of Pokedex, it'd actually be the Deoxys. It has a very strong kind of alien vibe to me. So, like I like the rings around the body. I really like the face, where I'm not too sure which of the green dots are eyes, and it's got this kind of visory mouth. Like it looks like a recognizable creature that evolved on an alien planet. To me, I really like the legs that look like they shouldn't be able to be stood on, and the kind of wavy details of its body, and just like the weird structure. Like if you look at the forelegs, that weird kind of muscle at the top of this picture, it doesn't look like. It looks like it happens to look like, things that evolved on Earth from the outside. But then if you looked at the muscles, it would just look completely different. And I really like about that. So I'd go for very much kind of a really good alien Pokemon, but a disappointing god Pokemon is basically where I stand on it.
I think that's why it works for me, is because of that same thing, where it's less coming out less as like a god Pokemon and more as the Pokemon from before the universe.
I can sort of see that.
It exists to different standards, in a similar sort of way to Ultra Beasts, but obviously differently.
It's a lot.
Other thing I think that's worth mentioning about Arceus, because both pronunciations are legitimate. Apparently, the reason that it's pronounced Arceus in the like anime and stuff in the English version was because they didn't want its name to contain arse. So they went, let's make it hardsy.
That's fair. I am going to say off the top of my head, I don't actually know how I pronounce this name because my ability to understand speech pronunciation is really bad. I've had 10
years. I was only
years.
bringing it up because I didn't pronounce it the same way you did. Yeah, it changes type.
Oh, yeah.
It has 17 different forms, depending on which plate it's holding. apart from normal because there isn't a normal plate,
Yeah.
but it's normally normal. And the yellow bits change colour to an appropriate colour for that type, which is both a cool gimmick. It gives it a lot of mechanical flexibility, and that does a lot to make it fit its theme, both in terms of like it's this Pokemon that's from before everything, it's bigger, it contains multitudes, it can become anything, but also the mythological element of like, well, it needs these artifacts, these mysterious ancient plates are what facilitates it changing like that.
One thing I will say is that I do like how it also doesn't look artificial. You know, it looks like it naturally evolved under very different rules from how our planet expects.
Mm-hmm.
Even with rings, like they're kind of rough, like they grew.
Yeah, it looks more like coral than like stone or metal
Yeah.
or any sort of worked material.
I think one other thing I will say is that one of the reasons why I don't feel like it quite lives up to its thing is the fact that like competitively it's always very useful, but it's never like the defining part of any of the metagames as far as I know.
Yeah, I've never played in a format where Arceus is allowed. I can't remember if it gets into like the end of year, end of generation,
No.
let's go crazy VGC formats or not. But I've certainly never played like Smog on Ubers or anything. So Arceus has always been that Pokemon that I got 3 of by going to an event during Generation 4 and going to one game, and they said, "Oh no, it's at the other game inside the department store," and I had to walk like 3 minutes to go there instead. Game being the biggest UK gaming video game store chain, by the way. Yeah, it's one of those Pokemon that I never really think about from a mechanical point of view so much as like, what's the aesthetic of it, what's the concept of it, and like...
I think, because I don't usually play Smog on Ubers either, in fact I go as far as to say that I think all legendaries should be banned from like Ubers and below, because I find a lot of them just clog up the meta in bad ways. Landorus T. But essentially the thing, if I had to describe how Arceus fares in Smog and Ubers in one sentence, it would be it was not the Pokemon that caused the creation of the Anything Goes tier. Which I feel as like the god of all Pokemon, it probably should have.
Well, you know, I think that you want your kids to do better than you, right? And I think that Arceus can look down and be like, wow, look at you go. It was Mega Ray Quasar that did that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing, right? If there'd been a Gen 4 remake at the time, who knows? Maybe Mega Arceus would have been ludicrous. Maybe the meta will be broken asunder if we get remakes and it gets a Gigantamax form with some sort of ludicrous special move. Who knows?
That'd be fun. I hope it does. Good luck, Arceus. its Gigantamax move is it remakes the universe, but now your opponent's team is 10 levels lower. Okay, so scores for Arceus. I gave it a 6 out of 8, which is mainly just carrying on the aesthetics. Really strong aesthetics, but has a kind of hard cap on what it can be because I don't like the lore. You gave it a 7 out of 8. I'm guessing that extra point is from the fact that you don't have that same issue.
In fact, there's some lore about Arceus I really like, and that is on my favourite Pokemon game I've barely played, Pokemon Conquest, the Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition crossover game.
I have never played that.
I would like to say I recommend it, but I don't really remember how it plays. I seem to remember it being all right. Maybe this year I'll get back to it. It's so the region that Pokemon Conquest takes place in, Ransei, is shaped like Arceus, and it is said in legend that if you can unite all 17 of the kingdoms, then it will appear before you. And sure enough, the protagonist conquers all 17 kingdoms. Arceus comes up, you it becomes your partner, and then you defeat Nobunaga, and Arceus leaves. And I like that because it gives this Pokemon. I mean, I guess this Pokemon does have like appearances and stuff in movies, but you know, I think it's kind of a bit of cool, weird lore.
I feel like I should probably watch Pokemon movies. Oh well. Uh,
And yeah, like I find that it does live up to the majesty of its lore, basically. So that's the distinction between us.
that's fair. I think I might boot it up to 6.5 actually, for one very important reason that I've just noticed, which is that it looks like it's wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah, wow.
Which is a very good thing for horse-like Pokemon to be wearing.
In 7 days, Arceus created the world, and then it stepped out of its boots and put its feet up.
Actually, I'm going to keep it as 6 because if you just take its head, it does look a bit like a sperm cell, and I feel like that's bad.
Okay, but can you consider how good it would be if, hypothetically, what if the front half of it can rotate on the ring independently from the back?
An Arceus twist toy. An Arceus Kinder Surprise. If you open it up, you get a Palkia. Okay.
Okay.
So, let's move on to the third potential first Pokemon, Mew. There we are. I started off my notes on Mew saying that I don't have much to say about it, and then I wrote like 500 words on it. So, Mew is the first Pokemon in the sense that it said it's essentially like Mitochondrial Eve, where all modern Pokemon are supposed to be descended from it genetically somehow. And I mean, so I started off just saying it's a pink cat blob, and then I noticed, oh hey, the Pokemon that's supposed to be like the one all other Pokemon evolve from also does kind of look like a fetus.
Mm-hmm.
It's still got that very kind of Gen 1 style, like weird knobbly body, like with the ears and stuff. Like, it's not as knobbly as, say, Rhyhorn or Rhydon, but it's certainly, like, it's definitely a Gen 1 Pokemon.
Very smooth, but in a lumpy way.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Smooth but in a lumpy way. It always, like, when it's in the air, it looks like it's swimming for me, and that's really cute. And I really like that. So, one of the big things is it's got a kind of weird relationship with the next one on the list, Mewtwo, which is that in universe, it's the ancestor of Mewtwo. Out of universe, it's the descendant. They designed Mewtwo first, and then they wanted to have Mew at least designed. But they had limited space to put in to make a new. They had limited space to put in a new sprite, so they basically made the Mewtwo sprite as simple as they could.
The Mew sprite, you mean?
They made the Mew sprite deliberately by taking the Mewtwo sprite and stripping it down.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I mean. So yeah, it's one of those Pokemon that the more I look at it, the more I like it. And so my score on it has, like, there's several times where I'm just like, I'd bump it up. Um, but now that I'm talking about it, I like the long tail. I like the kind of, the way the legs look like they should be on a much larger body than the actual upper body.
Hmm.
It looks like it hasn't finished developing, and that really helps the theme. So yeah,
Yeah,
pretty fond of it.
Mew is definitely one of those Pokemon that I think works especially well seeing it. I was going to say in motion, but I mean its presentation in the Pokemon Adventures manga as well. Like you look at Mew and you're like, oh, that's cute, but then it's presented in media being like doing things that are very powerful, and it's like, oh yeah, that works. Like it's the probably the first example of a Pokemon. It's like, oh, it's very small and cute, but great power lies within, and it does it well. I haven't really got a lot to say about Mew. I like Mew a lot. My notes say, and I quote, "It learns every TM and tutor move. That's sick." Because it is like the fact that Mew can learn everything because it's the first Pokemon. So if a move can be taught to Pokemon, it can be taught to Mew. Makes sense. And it's just cool for like the flexibility it gives it as a Pokemon, which just has like straight all round good stats. Nothing remarkable, but like it gives it a lot of interesting things you can do with Mew if you're playing in a way that you can use Mew. Also makes it fun for in game, which is quite nice because of it being in the Pokeball Plus, meaning that lots of people have been able to play through Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, or Sword and Shield with it. Also, Mew comes from South America. Pokedex says so. And so do the notes in the Cinnabar mansion where Mewtwo was made. They found Mew's DNA in Guyana, I want to say.
Huh. That Pokemon does have a kind of weird thing of how much of the real world geography exists in Pokemon.
Well, I mean, the Kanto area region of Japan is a bit different
Yep.
than in the real world.
Gala hasn't exited the International Pokemon League as far as we know.
I mean, they don't use the national dex.
Oh god, that's why Dexit happened. They've been keeping out the foreigners.
All these trucks with Mews underneath stuck at the border. Okay.
Oh, okay. Shall we move on to Mewtwo? Well, we'll
Yes,
do the scores from Mew, and then we'll just to wrap things up, and then we'll move on to Mewtwo. So I gave it a 6.5. The reason that 5.5 is crossed out is that originally it was that, and then I remembered what it looks like in action. That bumped it up to 6.5. You gave it a 7.
Yeah, it's very good. Mew is not a Pokemon I have a lot to say about, but Mew is give a thumbs up.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure the next one is my highest score for this batch, and that's Mewtwo. And so I'm going to say I really, really like Mewtwo's design, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. One is the collar and like the pipe at the back of its neck, because it looked like Mewtwo to me looks like a Pokemon grown in a lab, but it's not just that it looks like it was grown in a lab. It looks like it's had like lab equipment either implanted into it or grown into it, like with the collar and the tube and stuff like that. I really like the artificial kind of really smooth look that it has, and the fact that it still managed to have a lot of personality in its appearance and also like the way that it poses. I think this kind of default pose that it has is really good. So like I like the orbed fingers. The orbed fingers and toes to make sure it doesn't look too human. And I think like with Rhyhorn, I think there's some Pokemon that long tails just make them look more powerful, basically.
Hmm.
And Rhydon has the same thing, and so does Mewtwo. Like, anything that has a tail that long that needs to fold in on itself, it's got stuff to do with it. So I really like it, but I don't really have that much to say about it. It is one of the few like movie Pokemon that I've seen the movies of. One thing I will say is that I do wish that they hadn't given it such an obviously masculine voice in the movies.
Well, the I guess this is technically slightly later, but the second Mewtwo to appear in later movies had a feminine voice, I believe,
Huh.
at least in the Japanese version, which I think was probably partly to distinguish it from that first Mewtwo as a separate individual. But yeah, it's one of those things where it works very well for like the character that they were going for, you know. But also, yeah, I like Mewtwo. Mewtwo, I think, suffers in my mind for two things. One is that it's a cool legendary Pokemon, but there's been so many more since. And the thing about Mewtwo is Mewtwo's never outside of the movie. Mewtwo's never really been a Pokemon I've had, and I guess the card game. Mewtwo's never really been a Pokemon I've had a chance to feel any direct affection for because, like, it's a legendary Pokemon that you get end game. It's not allowed in competitive play, like official competitive play, and in game, like you're playing Red, Blue, Yellow. Mewtwo's the last problem for you to solve.
Yeah.
There's nothing to use it for. So for me, it's like, okay, cool. This is a cool Pokemon. It goes in the box.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I will say
One little detail. No, go ahead.
I've just seen Mewtwo's look in Pokken Tournament. No, I don't like this. Sorry, I just found it when I was browsing through Bulbapedia. No, no, no. I'm not going to put it up mainly because I can't bother to sort out PowerPoint.
Are you talking about Shadow Mewtwo?
No, I'm just talking about the way Mewtwo works in that way it's rendered. Shadow Mewtwo looks similar, but it's just it's just the way that it's animated, basically.
Oh, that is shiny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unsettling.
Yeah, like
That looks like a Mewtwo that's fresh out of the test tube.
Yeah. Polished Mewtwo.
Mewtwo used rock polish. One little detail of Mewtwo from one of its from its silver Pokedex entry I found pretty interesting when I was looking stuff up, is that it usually remains motionless to conserve energy so that it may unleash its full power in battle. And I like the idea of Mewtwo being a Pokemon that canonically is just standing there waiting for someone to walk up and battle it. Like, between that and all the stuff in the Pokedex about how it's said to have the most savage heart of Pokemon, like, I like Mewtwo as the Pokemon where it's like, scientists went, let's make the Pokemon that's the most powerful. And then it's like, okay, cool, you created this living, thinking, intelligent creature exclusively for fighting. That's a problem. And it's a problem for it as well. Like, the way it's handled in media pretty consistently is, Mewtwo is sympathetic, Mewtwo is a victim.
Yeah.
And I like the way that all like comes together. It's a Pokemon. As far as legendary Pokemon go, for being something that's just, it was made in a lab, the Mewtwo lore is solid.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry about the brief scroll ahead. I messed up the PowerPoint. It's my first time. It's first time doing this, so there's gonna be issues. So scores. I gave it 7 out of 8. And 6 out of 8 for you.
Yeah, like I said, Mewtwo is
It's solid.
cool, but there's others that do similar stuff in a way that strikes me more. This conversation, if I'd made it after this conversation, I might have given it a 7. But sorry, Mewtwo, please don't kill me.
Yeah, and so I just kind of checked the Mewtwo's in other media tabs on like Bulbapedia, and yeah, different movies. So some give kind of a voice done by a female, a male, or kind of both actors. So yeah, I think that's pretty solid. Um, so now we move on to our first ever Mega Evolutions, which are Mega Mewtwo X and Mega Mewtwo Y. So the thing about Mega Evolutions is that the way I think I want to evaluate them is specifically as temporary power-ups for that Pokemon.
Hmm.
And as temporary power-ups for Mewtwo, I feel Mega Mewtwo X works far better for me as like yeah, it still got that kind of weird artificial creation kind of vibe to it. You know, the muscles do not look like any kind of the muscles it gains do not look like any kind of natural muscle gain. Um, it's definitely a fighting type because it gains that type of Mega Evolution, but you know it it doesn't look like if I was evaluating it as a Pokemon by itself, it would be too visually busy for me. I think
Hmm.
you know you got the weird collar and we got um the muscles and stuff. It looks very much like a power up that could be punched out of it if it was in an anime.
Yeah, yeah. I like Mega Mewtwo X, but it's my least favorite version of Mewtwo. Um, it's interesting. Um, I think it's a cool idea, but aesthetically, I don't like it as much as regular Mewtwo. Um, like I had X version, and I never used Mewtwo anyway. But Mega Mewtwo X never really struck me as a selling point.
Yeah, I Mega Mewtwo Y. I think it would work better as a Pokemon by itself. As an upgrade, I kind of find it disappointing, and I'm not sure what I could suggest to improve it. The bit
Okay,
that
so
I really like is the kind of the arc and the horns on top of the head, but everything
mhm.
else I'm just kind of not that into.
Mega Mewtwo Y works for me for a few reasons. One of them is that I like the way that it just becomes the tail.
Mm,
Like it's sort of flipped and weird in that way. It's an interesting design. I like that it's of all the Mews, it's the one that screams psychic type. Like I like the idea of Mewtwo gets stronger by just consolidating itself down into this much more psychic entity.
yeah,
And the other thing, my really strong case for Mega Mewtwo Y that put this up at least a good solid point in my rating. Think about its main features. So Mega Mewtwo Y is smaller than regular Mewtwo, right?
yeah,
Mewtwo is 6'7", Mega Mewtwo Y 4'11". So it's compact. It's purple. It has a handle. Mega Mewtwo Y is the GameCube of Pokemon.
I did not expect where you went with that. I will say I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, which is that if it was a GameCube of Pokemon, it would be virtually indestructible. And I have knocked out Mega Mewtwo Y's.
Well, It tries.
It does. It tries. Um,
Wonder in Pokedex, with a mere 40, can smash a skyscraper to smithereens. Which sounds very impressive. It feels a bit less impressive when you read that Rhyhorn can quite easily smash a skyscraper.
yeah.
But, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about these two forms. What I will say is Mewtwo is one of the two Pokemon with two Mega Forms. And I will say, and we'll get into this next time when we look at the Kanto starters. Out of those two, it is by far my favourite. And it's the one that I can go, yes, I can see why I know why they gave Charizard two Mega Forms, but it's the one that I'm just like, yes, I don't mind that you gave it two Mega Forms.
See, for me, it's sort of the opposite in that they revealed here's Mewtwo's awakened form. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't see why we need a new Mewtwo form, but that's really cool and interesting. And then they revealed, actually, Mega Evolution is a thing. And this is Mega Mewtwo Y. And here's Mega Mewtwo X. And I was like, well, we've already got this perfectly good Mega Mewtwo. I don't think we really need the punchy one. Like, I would like Mega Mewtwo X more if they'd been revealed at the same time, I think.
That's fair. I think I kind of missed the direct, demonstration. Like, I kind of missed that particular bit of hype train.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think, like, when I first really got the hang of Mega Evolution, it was kind of, and here's the two Mega Charizard evolutions. And it's just like, particularly when you have Venusaur and Blastoise, which are along there as well. But I mean, it makes sense for me that Mewtwo, a artificially made legendary Pokemon, would have two Mega Forms, which is an artificial evolution rather than Charizard, essentially, to me.
It definitely makes a lot of sense for Mewtwo to have two Megas, yeah.
So yeah. Um. Right. So final scores for these two. I gave X 6 out of 8. You gave it 5 out of 8. I gave Y 4 out of 8 because it's just. It feels like a very 50% Pokemon. Like, it doesn't do anything wrong, but for me. I don't know. I think I've been unfair. I think I'd probably knocked that up to 5 out of 8 just because of the, the kind of the kind of head, handle, and horns kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's actually quite a lot shorter than than normal Mewtwo is actually a plus for me. I like that. I hadn't noticed that. So, that was our first batch of Pokemon.
I would just like to give a shout out to all of the Pokemon which also have a claim to be the first Pokemon, but which we didn't discuss today, which is Bulbasaur, Chikorita, Trico, Turtwig, Snivy, Chespin, Drifloon, Diglett, Rowlet, Pikipek, Grookey, Pichu, Pidgey, Piplup, and Eevee.
Are these all the Pokemon that are like the first in a Pokedex, or?
Yeah, all the Pokemon which are first in all of the Pokedexes, including the different Alola Dexes and the different Kalos Dexes, plus the first in the various browsers of the Ranger games, and the first in the gallery in Pokemon Conquest. Most of the other lists are either alphabetical or start with Bulbasaur.
I'd like to give a shout out to Victini, actually.
Yeah, Victini rules. Victini, Pokemon's number 0.
Yeah. If the only shout out goes good to Victini, but we'll get to that later.
This needs to carry on till Gen 5 so that I can argue about Victini with you.
Right. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for Ben for coming along. I think, will you be joining me for the Kanto starters next week?
I would certainly like to.
Jolly good. If any of you, particularly people that I know, want to join in for any particular Pokemon, let me know. The only rule is that if you want to join in for your favourite Pokemon, you will have to join in for the Pokemon either side of it. So you can't just say, I just want to do this Pokemon and not this family that we're covering in the same episode. That's the only rule for joining in. Thank you very much, and this will go up on YouTube soon once I've edited out the dead space at the start and all of my fault starts. Anyway, thanks everyone. Goodbye.